You don't have to worry about turning the heat pump down for the noise. So
no, I don't have to worry about turning the heat pump down for the noise. I do have to worry about putting on extra layers so I don't freeze to death here.
Long johns at the office.
Well, yeah. For those just listening to the podcast, I have like wool socks, insulated boots, jeans, long sleeve shirt, a hoodie, and a hat, and I'm freezing because it's like 61 degrees in the office because the heat pump in our office is dead.
There you go. What's a great week for that to happen too?
It is a great week for that to happen.
Sub-zero.
All right. What's up, everybody? Corey Singletary with the Citizens Utility Board, back with another episode of CUB Tracks. Alongside me, as always,
Tom Content with the Citizens Utility Board. We're back.
We are back. We're in the new year, and it's January. And before we got too far into the year, now that we've seen some things come along, we wanted to give sort of a wrap up for folks for a bunch of stuff that happened at the end of the year. But before that, there were a couple of things off the top we wanted to make certain folks were aware of. The first was we sent out an alert to members and folks on our mailing list.
That's right. So members of CUB got this week, but we're asking for people to call their lawmakers, call their assembly reps and state senators to retain competitive bidding for big power lines. The utilities are supporting a bill that would allow right of first refusal, so automatic ownership of the line of the new big projects that would be built in Wisconsin. And that undercuts the ability to save money through competitive bidding. So we're asking people to call their legislators and senators because this could come up. There aren't too many. The legislative session is going to wrap up probably by March. So this bill has gotten out of two committees, so it's ready for passage. But we're hoping with our big coalition that it's ready for stoppage. Yeah,
we've got a pretty broad, pretty diverse group of organizations that really are opposed to this, and it's actually, I think it's a testament to how, at least from our perspective, how bad an idea it is that we've gotten this sort of diverse a group together that oftentimes we don't see eye to eye on very many things.
Clean Wisconsin and AARP, and then Americans for Prosperity, and Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and Grover Norquist Tax Reform Group, as well as a bunch of business groups as well. So it's a pretty diverse coalition, all trying to stand up for lower costs as we look at billions of dollars of potential spending on power lines in the years ahead.
Yep. And other stuff before the legislature, I guess everything that we're about to, all these updates are from the legislature. The other one is the legislature just passed 2 EV bills.
Yes, it got out of it. So far, it's out of both bills are advanced from the state Senate. So they've been passed by the state Senate. We're waiting on the Assembly. Right. But the EV bills would allow charging by the kilowatt hour so that Wisconsin could finally qualify for $78 million in federal funding for the charging to stimulate building of charging stations along the interstates. There's been some amendments along the way, but by and large, it's looking like it's finally going to happen.
So while folks are calling the legislature, those are 2 bills that are before the legislature that it should be coming to the Assembly soon. That's also a good idea. To your point, it allows Wisconsin to tap into tens of millions of dollars in federal funding to build out electric vehicle and charging infrastructure in Wisconsin. And then the last one, which is more of a consequence of actions of the legislature, is we had coming into the new year, 2024, we had 3 commissioners appointed. We had 1 confirmed commissioner, the chair, Rebecca Cameron-Valk. She was appointed by Governor Evers when he was first elected, and has been serving since then, and has been serving as chair, and was confirmed by the Senate. Commissioner Summer Strand was appointed last year by Governor Evers. And then the 3rd commissioner was Tyler Huebner. He was also appointed by the governor, but those last 2 were unconfirmed. They were appointed. They had been seated. They were serving as commissioners, but they were basically serving as unconfirmed appointees. But just this week, as of the recording, the beginning of this week, the legislature met, the full Senate met, and affirmatively confirmed Commissioner Strand as commissioner, but voted out Commissioner Huebner. So he is no longer with the commission as of, I think, Wednesday was what it was. And then actually backtracking a little bit before that action before the Senate, last week Friday, I believe is what it was, Thursday or Friday, the chair, Commissioner Volk, issued a release that she would be stepping down as of February 2nd.
Yes, so she's leaving the administration after 5 years. So we had 2 sitting commissioners, and now we're having a changing of the guard with Summer Strand was appointed by the governor to be the new chair, and now that she's confirmed, that's official. So she's not an acting commissioner, but the governor has he has one more opening because he then appointed Christine Nieto to succeed Commissioner Huebner.
Yeah, so that's is an interesting situation, a little bit of promoting from within, you could call it. She's actually the division administrator for the Division of Energy Regulation. So a lot of changes over there. We'll definitely talk about that change at the commission in a future episode as we know more, but did want to get that out as a pretty big monumental shift in the commission over the next, probably by the time you're listening to this or watching this in like a week. So quite a few things that are going to be changing over there with the folks that are going to be making decisions on all of the things that we advocate for.
Exactly.
On behalf of the customer.
Big change. We weren't expecting a commissioner who had been already working for 4 years to be tossed.
It is. I don't want to say definitively, like in the history of the state of Wisconsin, it is unprecedented, but it is certainly not something that we ever really expect to happen. But certainly is something the Senate has the power to do in this sort of situation. All right, so I think that's all the stuff that's happened recently. So backing up to the rate cases, so we had 3 full rate cases for Madison Gas and Electric, Xcel Energy, and Alliant Energy, and then we had 2 sort of more limited rate cases for We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service. And the commission met, issued its decisions, and then finally, right near the end of the year, put out its orders with all the final numbers, all the goodness that everyone's been sort of waiting on. And so for folks that have been wondering what your bill is going to look like, for the first bill you're going to get probably at the end of January / beginning of February, here's what you can expect. Kind of increases mostly all the way around.
Yeah, with the exception being Wisconsin Public Service, which was one of those limited reopeners, and their rates are going, or their costs are going down 2.6%, and residential is just under that at 2.35%,
and that's for electric,
and that's just for the electric side. So they had a bigger increase the prior year, so this kind of helps ease some of the pain from the prior year. Small business up about 2.7%. And then for We Energies, that's about a 2.5% increase overall, and residential was a 3%, and small business was about a 2.3%. So the combined effect, if you think of, we often think of these rate cases as basically 2-year events. So the combined effect of both increases, or both the original case and the reopener for We Energies customers, for residential customers, is about a 15%. Bump from where electric costs had been at the end of 2022.
Yeah,
so
it's quite a shift over the course of just 2 years.
Right, and now we're in 2024, which is
another rate case
involving We Energies
expected for We Energies. So those
and WPS,
and for Wisconsin Public Service for rates to kick in if changes are approved, which something will probably be approved. Kicking in January 1 of 2025. But before we get to that, which is that's July's
we'll talk
problem.
about that later.
That's July's problem.
Nothing's even applied for yet.
So MG&E, Alliant, and Xcel.
So MG&E got overall about a 5.8% increase over 2 years, most of that coming in the second year. So for this year, it was smaller. For residential customers, it's about a 3% increase for this year, and about just under 9% overall over the 2 years. And similar for small business, it's about almost 3% for this year, and just under 8% for the 2 years. That's the MG&E. And then Xcel, I'll come back to Alliant. So Xcel was started with a $40 million increase is what they requested, and they ended up at just being approved about $1 million. So that was almost no change. So it's basically just a hair, well under 1% increase for everybody. It was about a 0.113%. So just a couple tenths,
Yeah.
one or 2 tenths of a percent.
It's, every dollar matters, but when you're down into like the less than a percent, it's kind of one of those things where, the month-to-month changes in your own usage, you probably wouldn't notice.
I don't know if we're going to hear like standing ovations and cheering and
Probably not.
in western and northern Wisconsin, but
at least
we could always hope.
At least we won't hear, massive boos coming from there.
And then the opposite of that is Power and Light. Alliant customers are seeing a big increase, including you. So 7% for residential, it ends up being about a 7% this year and a 14% overall. For small business, it was look at my notes, but a little less, 2% and 5%. I have to double check those numbers, but it seems right. And the overall was about 8% over 2 years, but residential was kind of taking the brunt of that, which does not include the fuel surcharge and the impact of that. So
yeah,
that is authorized right now for the next 2 years for Alliant customers. So
yeah, a lot of the sum total for Alliant customers is quite a bit. I think where the commission landed was not far off from the numbers we saw in the case. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, pancaked with the fuel increase, it's like 20-something%.
Or just under, yeah, is my guess, is where it landed.
Yeah.
So this would be a good time if you're an Alliant customer to make sure you're on the best rate.
Yes.
They have that nights and weekends offering, so that this might be a good year to try that out.
Yeah. And so for those who with sort of a sharp eye or who jotted all those down as Tom was running through them may have noticed that the residential increases were sometimes much higher than the overall increase for the entire utility, which gets into an issue that I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but an issue that's in every rate case, which is sort of in how they design the rates and how they split the check across all the different customer groups. We call it cost allocation, and that's something the commission actually made a decision on in some of these rate cases. So hopefully, maybe going forward, we might start seeing better numbers in those sort of different categories. But like I said, we'll get to that a little
There's
later.
an imbalance between the increases for residential and large customers, big business, and we're hoping for progress in that area in the years this year and beyond.
But stepping back, so these are all the final numbers. These are all like the sum total of all the decisions the commission made in these cases, and it's not. This isn't just like one thing in most of these cases. It's a combination of things. So the big issues. We wanted to walk through a couple of the big issues in today's episode, and we're thinking there's probably a couple more big ones. We're not going to hit every single one, but a few consistent themes across at least a couple of cases, if not all of them, that we thought folks would be interested in. Kind of going back and seeing, hearing what we thought, what we saw in the case, and also what the commission did. I think is also ultimately probably the more interesting part. So the big one, which is your favorite, is return on equity, utility profits, utility financial parameters, however you want to look at it. And it was a big year on that one in terms of commission decisions.
A big year because we were in a rising interest rate environment, and the commission actually voted to keep having returns on equity come down. So the fact that they did that, they didn't come as far as the CUB position, but it's still progress in a big year. And I think our early estimate was that the decisions on the 3 cases that this involved, Power and Light, Excel, and MG&E, it ended up producing savings over this year and next of about over $50 to $55 million. So it's significant savings.
Yeah, and it's we say this a lot. The reason we put a lot of time and effort into this is there are people may be surprised to learn that there are a lot of areas in the regulation of utilities where arguably there aren't a lot of levers to pull. to really lower costs. We've actually been in meetings with people where they're just like, well, can't you just deny them the rate increase, or can't you just like take away money or something like that? And that's not quite how the law works. But this is an area where the commission has a lot of latitude to work with. And, when we walked into 2023, so there were 3 utilities where the commission adjusted the return on equity, their profit rate. And 2 of those utilities were at 10%, 1 was at 9.8, and all 3 of them saw that number come down. Alliant and Xcel Energy went from 10% return level to 9.8, and MG&E. We were talking before we started recording that I can see, at least personally, subjectively, I can see how folks over there might be a little extra grumpy because they continue to be at the bottom of the pile. They were already at 9.8%, which was the lowest amongst all the utilities, and they're still there.
At the bottom now at 9.7.
So at 9.7, the gap's a little smaller now. But you're right. It was, the utilities tried to make a lot of hay out of, the current interest rate environment and inflation and that type of stuff. And, at the end of the day, the commission sent a pretty strong signal that, that the rates are still too high. That despite all those things, it was telling that even in a rising interest rate environment, all the utilities came into their cases saying, we don't need to increase anything, which kind of tells you how much fat's already baked into the pre-existing numbers.
Except Xcel did ask for an increase.
Okay, yeah. Xcel did actually ask for an increase.
So.
Yes. So two out of three ain't bad. The meatloaf rule applies here. But yeah, that's a big one, and it's tens of millions of dollars, and that carries each year because that reduces the amount of return that's baked into the rates, and that definitely benefits customers. And I think the commission really started, hearing the message that we were trying to convey, which is it's about balance, right? You can't just think about investors. It's not just about Wall Street. It's not just about investors, but it's also about the customers that have to bear the cost of the return of the profit you bake into the rates.
Yeah, and as Steve Keim, our regulatory strategist, pointed out, and as Kara Coben-Ferris pointed out in our briefs, there's a lot of leverage. This is an area where it's a subjective decision, and the PSC can and should take affordability and the ability to withstand these continued increases, and the fact that we're in a building cycle into account. So it's maybe a lower rate, but as these utilities are adding to their plant, it's lower rate on a bigger base, and so they're still doing fine. And the profits from the Wisconsin subsidiaries of our utilities were well over $1 billion just for the first 9 months of the year.
Yeah,
last year.
So that's a big one, and we're hoping that. Well, I mean, so we just mentioned the stuff at the commission, and we won't go down the road there. But at least as of December, we were hoping that would provide some good momentum coming into this year to kind of continue with that with We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service.
Exactly.
And we still hope that. So we're going to continue to fight that issue because it's evergreen. It's every time the utilities come in, they're asking for more on behalf of their shareholders, and it's essentially our job to say, on behalf of customers, no.
Yeah, no. It's all about balance, and the profit rates or returns in Wisconsin, as approved by our commission, are still above the national average, even with the decisions that were made to bring them down in these cases.
Yeah, there was a little bit. I think we still probably have a little bit of tweaking to do to our messaging to really, as you mentioned, it is at the end of the day sort of a subjective call by the commission, right? It's a qualitative decision based on some hard facts, some hard numbers, and it was interesting because at the start of the discussion for the commissioners, we had a situation where potentially there was an opportunity to go lower than where they landed. but the chair walked in with a higher number with actually the return numbers that they did approve. And ultimately, the other commissioners ended up joining her there at the 9.7s and the 9.8s. And, on the one hand, that's a little disappointing. But at the same time, I think that just shows us that there's, more work for us to do on really making certain that the commission understands, all sides of this issue. And one, understanding where the utilities are essentially on a little bit of thin ice with arguments that they're making in terms of the evidence and the facts and, what's sort of crying wolf and what's not. And also just really emphasizing the fact that it's like, they should view this as an opportunity for them to make decisions rather than trying to pretend like there's a magic formula that's going to give them a number.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, I think we're helping kind of dent the kind of the whole gap between rhetoric and reality. And I think that's what we'll still be working on that again this year.
Yep. So we've been talking about this balance between shareholders and customers, and in the rate cases, there was a lot of discussion about affordability, particularly in the MG&E and Alliant Energy cases with Blacks for Political Social Action of Dane County as interveners, as parties in the case. They brought in an expert witness, Roger Colton, who's a nationally recognized expert in affordability, utility customer affordability issues, has done a lot of work in Pennsylvania and other states. And there were some proposals brought in by the utilities, MG&E and Alliant specifically. Mm-hmm. They introduced them into the cases to begin with, and the parties sort of had some other proposals. And it's kind of a mixed bag. It was an interesting place to land where the commission ultimately landed on affordability issues, whether it's affordability rates, arrearage management programs like forgiveness programs or programs to help folks once they fall behind, and other types of programs that could benefit low-income customers like community solar and that type of thing. And it was interesting what they approved or required the utilities to do, and kind of what they kick down the road.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely going to be more of a work in progress issue because we don't have anything, not a lot of definitive changes as of January 1, 2024. But it seems like progress in terms of they liked the ideas that Roger Colton and BPSA brought into the case, and they want to see some of those implemented. Yeah.
So BPSA advocated in both cases for affordability rate program, the customer affordability program, to help those where the percentage of their household income going to utilities is too high. And the commission declined to require any of the utilities to develop any kind of affordability program, but they did make some decisions around the arrearage management programs. They required MG&E to go and develop an AMP, an arrearage management program, and they directed Alliant Energy to make some changes to the who qualifies for it
for their forgiveness program.
The commission agreed with BPSA and raised the threshold to 200% of the federal poverty level. I know the utility is hard at work on trying to figure out how they can do that, but so. Not so much on the upfront help in terms of making rates affordable, but some help on helping folks out of trouble once they get in a jam. And the commission also approved some changes to a community solar program, right?
That's right, for Alliant, and where they're going to have to develop work with stakeholders to develop a community solar that targets low income populations.
Yeah, so that's actually going to be newish. I know that the companies that have community solar programs, Alliant in particular, my understanding is in their first batch of community solar projects, they essentially they made available to, I think, Habitat for Humanity.
That's right, in Fond du Lac.
Some shares of those projects so that, there could be some low-income households and communities that could benefit from that investment in community solar. Just kind of looking at across all of this, with affordability really coming to the head, coming to a head. The chair, talking about how, she said, looking at the record, it was clear that there's an affordability crisis and that customers are saying enough is enough. When you think about kind of what was said and then what was done, like what's your kind of takeaway on where the commission is headed, at least where they were headed at the end of last year?
I think they want more and more well thought out proposals, but they weren't ready to just impose something on the utilities right then and there. So they think they want action. They just didn't. The end result is it's not immediate action. So that's the challenge, and especially for an Alliant customer looking at close to a 17 or more % increase when you combine the rate case and the fuel case. It's a lot for people to handle right now. So it's like we're going to have to really make sure we have that customers are focused on, if you're struggling, reaching out to the utility and applying for energy assistance and all the traditional things while these other things are being developed.
Yeah, the interesting thing on that you mentioned is something I've been thinking about is we in the case advocated for in the MG&E and Alliant cases. We said to the commission, look, what the utilities have proposed isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all the problems, and BPSA has raised some valid critiques about how customer bill credits or affordability programs should be designed. But to your point about, the bills are due now.
Help me now, people.
Help me now. We advocated for the commission to do something now, to at least approve what the utilities propose, because that would get some money out into the communities.
And then see how it goes.
And then over the next 2 years, it could have done that and also directed that the companies work with stakeholders like us, like BPSA, other community organizations, to come up with something better.
Right. Because
what they did find, they did agree with BPSA that the programs were not as well developed as, to your point, as they would like.
Right.
But in just straight up denying them, it means that none of that relief is coming now.
Exactly. So we're kind of in a hurry up and wait mode and waiting for these new initiatives and new collaborations to unfold.
Yeah, it's interesting. We collaborate with and talk with our peers in other states, and it's always interesting where some instances where some states, including Wisconsin, sometimes are willing to do things on a kind of a short-term basis, like put something in place, run it for a while, see how it works, be a little more experimental, be a little more nimble. And then places where utilities and especially regulators are really hesitant to put something in place because of the concerns about how hard it will be to change it in the future, which is a valid concern. And I can for the life of me, doing this for now like 14 years, I can never tell when a commission is going to be open to sort of being more nimble and responsive and changing things and evolving things as they go, and when they're going to be like, no, we want to put something in place that's durable, that's good, that's right, that's going to last.
Right.
And it's always hard to tell.
Yeah, and to the Wisconsin Commission's credit, they did approve during the pandemic. There was definitely a lot of attention on all the people who were not able on the disconnection issue, and there was no disconnections allowed, and the balances rose, and so they did approve on a pilot basis the Alliant forgiveness program, and then they used this case to make some tweaks to it, and then CUB and We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service had collaborated on the low income forgiveness tool, the forgiveness program for those customers, and then the commission recently met and is kind of making some tweaks to that as well. So they are tweaking things, but as far as brand new initiatives for 2020, for Jan 1, 2024, we didn't see that.
Yeah, the commission did, to your point, that they indicated that they want to see more. They want to see more work. I think they want to see all parties, bring essentially more, I guess, facts, more evidence, more analysis to them, because I think they really want to make certain that not only are the programs going to be effective for customers, but obviously, recent days and months, there's been concern raised that if we put in place certain assistance programs, customer affordability programs, that they need to pass legal muster with state statute. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to balance there.
Right. No, and we still are waiting to see how the commission's going to proceed on the affordability program for XL for Northern States Power Wisconsin. So.
Yeah, that's still hanging out there.
Still pending.
That's still pending. Now, I think, and I'm hoping maybe in a couple of weeks we might have some updates for folks there. I've heard some rumors that may actually start moving again relatively soon, but then we'll see. I think that'll be kind of at least a bellwether event in the immediate as to where the commission is on some of these types of affordability programs, and what it's willing to take on,
right,
and what it's not.
Yeah.
So that'll be another one. So a couple of big.
So watch this space.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
So mixed bags. I think good outcomes on the utility returns. The numbers, at least we saw in this case, still provide a lot of room for that to go down. So we're hoping we can continue to move that down over time, and then we'll continue the work on the affordability programs. And the commission has teed up quite a few things over the course of this year in terms of investigations and whatnot to continue to look into those issues.
Yeah, and we didn't include the overall millions of dollars numbers, but from requested to authorize the amounts did go down during the case, for by and large for the big three utilities that had general rate cases. So more. We had talked last year about looking at potentially $500 million or more of increases if you included the extra fuel surcharges, the natural gas increases, and so we did land below that, and there were savings. Some of that through the finance issues, through the profits, and some in other areas.
Yep. All right. Any parting thoughts on those two items? Affordability, utility returns.
I just think affordability was mentioned in other areas that we'll get to in the upcoming episodes. Like when they started talking about this costs of the solar projects, that the affordability issue came up there too. So maybe it was because there was so much public participation, which was great to see. So much there was a healthy amount of participation across these cases. So they knew people were listening, and people cared. People are concerned about rising costs right now. So, but we'll get into that in maybe the next round.
Yeah, this year, I think this year will be very interesting between all the investigations the commission opened as part of the rate cases, some of which we'll talk about in upcoming episodes. The fact that we have two rate cases, one for the largest and second most expensive utility in the state, and our second or third largest utility, depending on how you do the math, with Wisconsin Public Service and We Energies, not in that order, and affordability programs. This is a year for the strategic energy assessment. It's an election year. There's a lot of stuff going on.
And it's a year where big decisions are going to be made about getting more money out to people in the form of the Inflation Reduction Act. And watch the CUB blog, because we'll have in the coming toward the end of January, there are going to be listening sessions from Focus on Energy around the state, taking input on that. So we'll be providing those dates on the CUB blog.
Cool. Well, stay tuned, subscribe, follow, listen, rate, all that fun stuff. We'll be back. I think we'll cover recap a couple other items from the rate cases, tying up some loose ends on where some other issues landed that folks had some interest in. And then from there, it'll probably be on into all the other crazy things.
All the other crazy stuff, and continue, and we'll update on the changing of the guard over at the commission.
Yes, I'm not really I don't know where that's going to land. So
Who
we'll see.
knows?
All right.
It's a mystery. It's a time of mystery, I bet. So
Mystery.
mystery.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone.
See you next time.
See you on the next one.